Okay, so what this video is going to talk to you about is different ways to see how your sources relate to each other. And so this is all about how to effectively and properly synthesize. You started doing this work, or at least paying attention to this in your Odyssey and Mango paper. So to synthesize means that you are seeing multiple sources and how they work together. So in that paper, you looked at how the Odyssey related to House on Mango Street. And so you were seeing relationships. And so you started that work, but now there's more that you could be doing. And I just want to give you an indication of what that looks like. Okay. So what you should do is you should have out your blue packet. Okay. So in here, on your not letter of intent, but the table of contents, you'll notice that I have different synthesis techniques. So different ways to synthesize rather than the obvious. So that's where we are going. So we're going to page 12. All right. So head down to page 12. Right there. Right. So this is all about how to look beyond the obvious. All right. So when students usually think of synthesis, so putting sources together, this is what they think it looks like. That source A, so this is all about like school start times. All right. So this has nothing to do with your topic. This is just examples to show you what synthesis looks like. So when students think of synthesis, they oftentimes think this, that I've got one source. So source A says that school starting later helps students perform better in school. And guess what? Source B also says that. They say the same thing. They may not say it word for word, but they both say that starting school later is better for students. Therefore, I can have an entire body paragraph that talks about how starting school later helps students perform better in school. Yay! Now, this isn't necessarily wrong, right? This is not wrong at all. In fact, it is synthesizing. You are seeing how source A and source B relate to each other. But the problem here is that it's a very, very limiting way of seeing synthesis. Meaning, you're waiting for sources to say the exact same thing, but they won't do that. Your sources do not do that. Some of them do. Source 2 and source 4 both talk about the medical benefits. Source 3 and source 5 talk about relationships, but they don't say exactly. They don't always say the exact same thing, which is happening here. Instead, and I'm getting this definition. It's not something that Ms. Haynes just totally made up. This definition of synthesizing comes from many different colleges. So to synthesize actually means that you are just incorporating multiple sources of similar or differing views, right? So what that means is you are seeing relationships between sources. You are seeing how sources relate to each other. This assignment will absolutely require you to do that. The research paper requires you to see how sources relate to each other. So it doesn't say anything about how sources are the same. It just simply asks, what is their relationship? Okay? So here are some different ways for you to synthesize. That's what the rest of this is. All right? So there are 5 common ways to synthesize. Okay? So, the first one is similar. So source similarity leads to a conclusion. And so that's exactly what it says up before. So like source A and source B say the exact same thing. Source A says starting school helps students perform school later, helps students perform better in school. And source B also says that. So they literally just say the same thing. And that's what we addressed up here. Again, not bad. But I want you to know that there are different ways to see this. There are multiple ways to see, or multiple ways to synthesize. So then another way to do that is when you look at multiple sources, perhaps there's a breakdown in the sources that leads to a further problem, right? So what that looks like. Source A might assert that students use a late start time to stay up longer, thus robbing them of the benefits of a late start. So source A is talking about how kids stay up late, and so like they're starting school later isn't going to be any help because they're just encouraged to stay up later. However, source B explains that students who use late starts, source B interviews students who use the late start to finish their homework in the morning. So they're waking up the exact same time to finish their homework. So they're not actually getting any benefit of the late start. So here, there's no benefit. Here, there's no benefit. So here, I can make the conclusion that both of these sources prove that there's actually no health benefit to the late start. Okay? So I can do that by saying, look, source A proves or shows that students stay up late, and so waking up later is just doing the exact same thing. They're not getting any more sleep. And then source B says kids that they just use the late start to go to bed at the same time that they were going to bed before. Now they're just waking up the same time to get their homework done. So then I can come to the conclusion that both of these, even though they don't say the exact same thing, it doesn't say, source B does not say, yeah, kids stay up later and then they're not getting enough sleep. No, source B says they're not getting enough sleep because students wake up early, just like they would before, to finish their homework. So they don't say the exact same thing, but they have similar ideas, and that idea is that there's no actual health benefit for the late start. So you can see how they don't say the same thing. They're about the same general idea, but I can come to a conclusion based on that. So for example, are there benefits of social media that don't say the exact same thing, but I can come to a conclusion? Taking a look at number 3, source difference leads to pivotal issues. So here, what you're going to be noticing in the sources here is that they might contradict each other, which shows there's a problem. So they don't actually say the same thing. In fact, they contradict, they juxtapose, they contrast each other. They say different things entirely about this topic, but I can still come to a conclusion based on that. So for example, source A claims that waking up later allows students to be well rested. All right, so that's what source A is saying. However, source B explains that students need to wake up earlier in order to prepare for expectations out of high school. So they got to wake up early because that's what they're going to be expected to do outside of high school. When you get a job, when you've got an 8 a.m. class in college, you can't be expected to say, no, I don't want to do that, and then not get up. So source A is saying, yeah, it's good for them to sleep in. Source B is saying the opposite. It's bad for them to sleep in because it doesn't prepare them for the world. So then the conclusion I can come to here is that, there's students have a diverse needs. So it's not like one size fits all. I cannot fix all students' problems. And so maybe the conclusion I'm coming to there is that school start times is the tip of the iceberg. Students we have an educational system that says all students are going to do this, when that might not be the benefit for most of the students. And so even though these contradict each other, waking up late is good, waking up late is bad, waking up late is good, waking up late is bad, I'm coming to a conclusion that sees a relationship between these two. Since source A and source B say this, I can see that actually this is kind of a big deal. We're trying to enforce a rule on students that doesn't actually work. We're going to force all students to do this? Well, my research, even though it doesn't say that's bad to do that, I'm making conclusions. And some of you might be saying, oh, Ms. Hain, when does this come up? How do I talk about this thing that I just underlined here? You know what that is? That is going to be your commentary. So your commentary is going to show me the relationship between these two, because you have to explain why are these two pieces of evidence so important? Well, because it exposes the difference that all students have. They don't have the same needs. So the relationship that I see, that is the commentary. That is the commentary. That is the commentary. Hey, guess what? That's commentary. Now, another way that you can see sources relate to each other is that So then, the fourth way that you can take a look at how sources relate to each other is that they build upon each other, meaning that one source might start an idea and then another source finishes it, and that then you can come to a conclusion based on that. So for example here, source A looks at a multitude of schools across the nation that start anywhere between 7:05 and 7:45. So source A is just giving me some like background information. Source B, however, then examines studies that demonstrate that students do not receive the necessary amount of sleep on weekdays. So, source A says, look there's a ton of different schools that start between 7:05 and 7:45. Source B then says, like, a lot of students across the nation do not get the amount of sleep that they need. Then, I can come to the conclusion that when I put these sources together, they prove how schools could be doing more to help their student body's sleep habits. And again, where is this clarified? It's through the commentary. Okay? Oh, I'm pretty sure I spelled that wrong. So all of this is going to be your commentary. So while I only have it written as one sentence, you're going to be expanding on that. So like your commentary could be like, like since there's multiple schools that don't start that start earlier, they need to respond to the needs of their students. Source B explains that students need more sleep. What is one thing that schools could do to benefit students? They could change those start times as addressed in source A. So like I'm coming to a conclusion. Source A and source B do not say the exact same thing. In fact, like if I might not even realize the relationship, but now I know, I can see sources and how they build upon each other. That might be good. So perhaps I could rate part of my paper of like, that people create relationships. Or like one of my sources talks about social media creating relationships. Does another source talk about ways or what might be spread through these relationships? Or one source talks about how social media allows me to connect with multiple other people. Is there something that might be spread between multiple different types of people? So if I'm connected with 16 million people online, perhaps I might spread, I don't know, like what source 6 says, like disinformation. I might see that these relationships might actually be bad because they spread disinformation. So I could do that in a body paragraph. And then the last one is like acknowledging different issues leads to identify a need. So this is what that looks like. Source A sheds light on the new understanding of the adolescent brain and the needs it has. So that's just talking about the student brain, right? Sorry. Then source B interviews teachers to portray a shift in the needs of adolescents since they spend so much time in front of a screen, which tires them out regularly. Both of these mean that there's a lot of work that needs to be done to help teenagers. So what that means is like, clearly the adolescent brain has needs, and there's even more needs that need to be met because students are now using technology a lot. So I can come to the conclusion and talk about, like there's a multitude of needs that are, this is going to sound ridiculous, but there's a multitude of needs that teenagers need. I know, shut up, don't laugh. That's stupid. But like what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show you that I'm seeing a relationship between these two. It's telling me that the brain in general has needs. Now I'm seeing, look, there's even more problems with them or not problems, but there's even more necessity that they have, or necessity that schools need to respond to based on the fact that they sit in front of a screen a lot. And so I'm then coming to the conclusion that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to support and help teenagers. And I could make that connection to start times, right? So like my next paragraph might be like, this is why start times are important. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show you the different relationships that articles have with each other. They will not always say the exact same thing, all right? So perhaps you're seeing how they relate in different ways, and use this page to help your understanding of how synthesis happens.